The UNC has been on a warpath against what we know as independent senators. There are several things I want to raise here today because, of course, you know that I like to have citizens that are politically educated. Knowledge is power, and I always like to speak particularly about our Constitution because that is the highest law of our land. That is what governs the way that we do things in Trinidad and Tobago. There is nothing in our Constitution that names these senators independent senators. So maybe we should refer to them as presidential senators because they are selected. No one gives any mandate. So, there are some senators that are selected based on the advice of the opposition leader. Some are selected based on the advice of the prime minister. And some are selected by the president herself, who she thinks have served the country well in different spheres and have made contributions. The Constitution gives actual, sort of like adjectives as to how she can choose them, right? But there is nothing in our Constitution that says, they can't actually be affiliated. So there's nothing stopping the president from choosing somebody who is a sitting PNM member or a sitting UNC member. I want to point out some historical facts, right? In 1995, there was a tie, and N.A.R. Robinson would have given his 2 Tobago seats to Basdio Panday, to UNC, to get into power. In 1997, when A.N.R. Robinson became president, many people thought that it was payback. There was a gentleman's handshake back then that would have said, in 95, Panday and Robinson would have gotten together. Panday would have said, listen, I'm going to make you president. In 2 years, the position for president is going to be up for grabs. You give me the seat and, you could be president. And so many people, thought that was a gentleman's arrangement that had happened prior and whatnot. And so in 1997, Robinson became president, and I mean, he'd been a PNM member, he'd been, so there's a lot of precedence for this, by the way. And I mean, now, whether we like it or not, this is our Constitution. And so that brings me to now constitutional reform. We have this sort of revolving door politics where UNC and opposition will oppose something and then they come and do it in government. PNM opposes something while in opposition and then they come and do the same thing in government. We had a National Advisory Committee on Constitutional Reform. And one of the points that came up, and it's not the first time that it's come up, is the way that the president is selected or elected by an electoral college and whatnot. Many persons believe that they should be elected by citizens, very similarly to how we elect the members of parliament during a general election. Some persons feel as though the Electoral College should be widened to include maybe members of the Tobago House of Assembly, councillors, members of the judiciary and whatnot, right? So there are several recommendations that are in the public domain. And this is where I want to call out the UNC government. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, and in particular, the UNC's PRO, Dr. Kirk Megu, he's someone that speaks about constitutional reform all the time. Constitutional reform is something that the country, without a doubt, wants. The citizens want constitutional reform. But instead, we are debating the Prime Minister's pension, the TTRA, and all sorts of stuff. Is constitutional reform on this government's legislative agenda? Where does it fall in their priority listing? Because you are seeing the UNC trolls setting up a narrative that the presidential senators are in no way independent because the president herself is in no way independent. And that's a dangerous narrative. because of course what we're seeing is them going after Christine Kangaloo. And I mean, and we've protested. I was there protesting. So UNC, we know, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, Anil Roberts turned his back against Christine Kangaloo at the swearing in when she became president. So there is animosity between this UNC government and the president. There is a history of animosity. We need the UNC government to bring legislation before the parliament that sees constitutional reform. This manner of the way that we handle things, if we don't like the way that it's handled, bring reform, bring constitutional reform, and end the conversation once and for all about whether presidents are biased or not. We've had this conversation, as I said. We saw it back in the 90s with A.N.R. Robinson. There's always been allegations when Pandey brought the Senate President, Ram Dayal. When they nominated him, they would, persons argued that he would have been, serving under UNC and whatnot and whatnot. Why doesn't the UNC government end all the propaganda and all the vitriol, about this and that and she's PNM and this and that? Bring constitutional reform to solve the problem once and for all, so that the president, because guess what? In a few years, the UNC is going to nominate someone that will seek after their interest. The Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, many of these positions, we have said before, time and time again, they need to be selected in a more independent manner. Now is your time. You have a special majority. I mean, it's not a constitutional majority, but you can bring this legislation. I think that the presidential senators, and you may very well get opposition support, but now is a good time to call the bluff of every parliamentarian. Let us see who is truly interested in constitutional reform. I am challenging Kamla Persad-Bissessar and this UNC government to make constitutional reform a real priority. Before the next presidential term is up, before this presidential term is up, and it's time to choose a next president, bring the legislation that is necessary so that the next president is chosen in a more independent manner. That is my challenge to this UNC government. Over to you, Kamla Persad-Bissessar. End the divisive vitriol. You have the power to deal with this legislatively.